There we go. All right, apologize. Looks like we had temporarily lost some of you guys on the YouTube side of things, but we are back up and running right now. So we're going to keep rolling here. If you're just joining us on the YouTube platform, sorry for the little glitch in the cutout there. Appreciate our producer, Raven, letting us know to that situation. But we're going to go ahead and continue on. Looks like we're back up and running. Excellent connection, it says. All right, we'll double check here on our Facebook friends. How you doing over here in Facebook world? Give me a comment, give me a like, give me a subscribe. Brand new to all of this. I need as many of you guys watching as I can because I really want you guys to enjoy this. And number two, wanted to share. If you're enjoying this show programming, if you've been a watch, we've been doing this for almost 6 months now. I believe we started back in March. I'll go back and look at the archives here, but Producer Raven, do you happen to remember when we started? You might have to do a little research here and go fly back, and I might touch back on it at the end of the show. But I know we've been doing it about since March, and even through my kidney transplant, we never missed a show. That very week, I got my kidney transplant on a Monday, the day after a show, and I was released from the hospital that Thursday, and I was back doing a show the next Sunday. So there you go. Even through all that, I've never missed a show. If worst case scenario, we've recorded them like we did last week. I hope you guys enjoyed that format. Maybe a little bit better produced. I'm not sure. Still about the same content though. But so thank you guys so much for that. We appreciate all the love and support. Anyway, all right. So today's show, as always, I try to tell a story. I try to give some relativeness to this, and to be honest, I can't. I don't have a file in my memory that helps me process this. The only thing that really has helped me this last week to kind of understand and process everything that's been happening over in Afghanistan is just a simple understanding that, for me and my faith, God's in control. This was supposed to happen, even if we don't like it, and even if it's wrong, it's God's will. This is what's going to happen. But everything happens for a reason, even in the midst of tragedy, even in the midst of sorrow and despair and heartache. God's will be done, and it can work. It will work for His glory. So just want you guys to remember that if you're a Christian like me, that was the first thing that came into my mind on everything that unfolded this last week. So kind of going with the show today, I'm gonna take this from a very, very much all these news sources that you guys have probably been getting, bombarded with. And I am going to take and just kind of go through a wide variety of them. I'm even going to be quoting a news article from Al Jazeera. And some of my Republican friends are probably already thinking, yep, I'm done, Odie. Bye. You read that article? I'm out of here. And to them, I would say, if you actually want to at least understand spin on a news article, you have to be willing to look at all sides, no matter how ugly and how distasteful and rotten they are. Now, I'm not saying Al Jazeera as a network they are a global network. They are found in all different kinds of countries around, especially Europe and that. I believe there's even one in the United States. I could be wrong, but I believe that they have a base, like a headquarters, if you will, here in the U.S. They're a worldwide organization. I know the name just makes people think Al Jazeera. Okay, it's just Middle East news, It's always going to favor the Middle East no matter what. Just bear with me. I don't have a lot of experience with them as an agency. I will admit I personally don't read because it's not really relevant to the stuff that's going on here. But in this case it is, because they happen to get the first interview with the Taliban leaders, who are now, instead of acting as militia military, are acting like diplomats. Odd for me to say that, and I'm sure it feels weird for you guys to hear that. I have a title for one of the guys here that he's going to go by, and I don't know why I smile, because I shouldn't, but because every one of us know the Taliban is bad, right? We all have an understanding. Republican, Democrat, Taliban, bad. Enemy, right? Enemy of the United States. Well, in this article, they would like you to believe something else. And they would like you to believe that all this hysteria going on there is unfounded and not right. And that they're really good guys, and they're gonna work on women's rights. They weren't very specific, but we're gonna hit on all that today. We're also gonna talk about direct, actual speech transcripts So if you watched the president this last week on television, I actually have the script that he was reading from the White House themselves. Pretty much word for word what you heard on TV. And I'm going to direct quote from it. I was not able to find a specific article I was looking for Donald Trump, but I did get a good reference from factcheck.org. Hopefully that will suffice. And one other quick note, at the bottom of the description in the video are my show notes. And I'm going to bring them up on screen here as I go through them. I'm also going to, in certain cases, bring up the web pages. But if you guys are interested in the links and the sources, the only one I did not include is the Al Jazeera. And I did that because I just don't want to provide much validity to it, because it's not going to give you any value reading this article. It's just not. But at the same time, I read it and I want to quote it and I want to compare and contrast, if you will. It was the only way to do that. That's the only one I didn't actually put a link on, but it is there. And but all the other ones I did get. I try to stick with like AP News. It tends to be the more generalized news. Not saying that they're completely unbiased, but of the bunch, if you kind of want to get a smash of a little bit of everything that's been going on, AP News is always kind of the de facto, see what they're saying about an issue. But they're not always first. They're not always the most detailed with their stories. They're really what you would expect, the who, what, when, and where, and why. And a lot of people like me, we like that. But in this case, I needed to dive deeper. So I have an article from CNBC, and I think I have another one too that I'm going to touch base on here. So that's pretty much what we're going to be doing. Is I want to unpack this last week, and I want to compare some stuff that you probably heard, and we're going to try to see if we can contrast it with something, so that at the end of the day, I don't want to change your mind. I just want you to think about something. And then what we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking about all the video, the undeniable videos that we've been seeing on TV. And then I'm going to try to help us all, myself included, kind of process this, and like how do we deal with this on a human perspective. And then beyond that, is there anything we can do? Is there any way we can help the women and the children, especially, who for all intents and purposes are probably going to be denied education? Young girls are going to be forced into marriage. That was a Islamic or radical Islamic law. Stuff like that is just appalling to us. They just think that it has to happen. I don't want to pretend like I understand Islamic belief and Islamic law as they have it over there, because I don't. Obviously, I'm a Christian, so I wouldn't really much know about that unless I did those sort of studies. But I intentionally try to keep my mind away from those things, because I think they kind of cloud my pictures up a little bit. And they honestly, if I was going to give an opinion on it, if a lot of people say the Bible contradicts itself, I would say the Quran and all that kind of contradicts itself a little bit too much as well. I just probably opened up a can of worms. I can't wait for my comment section to explode now with, how dare you? You don't know nothing. Okay. All seriousness, just bear with me here. I do these shows live, so if I say something that's a little off color, it's usually just my personality breaking out and me trying to have a sense. But at the same time, I don't want to be a stuck-up news guy. I want to be relatable to you guys, because at the end of the day, I enjoy having conversations with you. I don't much like talking to myself, but just me in a studio and a microphone. So please contribute to the conversation. Save me from myself, if you will. Anyway, all right. So what we're going to do now is we're going to dive into all these stories, and I'm trying to pick these out in a very specific, article way, kind of doing this. Okay. So this one is from factcheck.org. This is when I was trying to find something for Donald Trump on when he started the drawdown. I am going to pretty much directly quote from this, although I am going to pull up my Word document here. And I kind of did this in reverse order. I was attempting to go through this the opposite way. But anyway, okay. So this is the part of the article I'm going to quote. The blame game has begun over Afghanistan. The fact is, President Joe Biden and his predecessor, Donald Trump, were both eager to withdraw U.S. troops from Afghanistan, and the Biden referred to in his August 16th speech as America's longest war. The Trump administration in February 2020 negotiated a withdrawal agreement with the Taliban that excluded the Afghan government, freed 5,000 imprisoned Taliban soldiers, and set a date certain of May 1st for the final withdrawal. Pay attention to that May 1st date, if you will, with me here, though, as we continue. And the Donald Trump administration kept the pact, reducing U.S. troop levels from about 13,000 to 2,500, even though the Taliban continued to attack Afghanistan government forces and welcomed al-Qaeda terrorists into the Taliban leadership. I'm going to butcher that name. You guys can see it on your screen. Zabullah. I just totally butchered it, but I'm not very good with Middle Eastern names. Sorry. Anyway, the Taliban spokesman for nearly 2 decades appears at a press conference in Kabul, Afghanistan on August 17th. And that was with the Los Angeles Times. Biden delayed the May 1st withdrawal date that he inherited, but ultimately his administration pushed ahead with a plan to withdraw by August 31st, despite obvious signs that the Taliban wasn't complying with the agreement and had a stated goal to create an Islamic government in Afghanistan after the U.S. left, even if it meant it had to continue our war to achieve our goal. Biden assured Americans last month that a Taliban takeover of Afghanistan was not inevitable and denied the U.S. intelligence assessed that the Afghan government would likely collapse, but it did, and quickly, end quote. So there's a couple things that we need to understand here. So this is political game kind of spin up, if you will. So what Biden is trying to do, in my opinion, based on this assessment, is he's taking credit as if he was the sole architect behind this drawdown. And he kind of blamed Trump because it didn't happen and there wasn't communication, this, that, and the other. I don't really have much, if that would be true for most other people, but you have to remember, President Biden did spend as vice president with Barack Obama. So I'm pretty sure he understands how things work in the White House. I have a good feeling that he knows exactly how that process and system works and kind of had an idea of what to expect. And the fact that his aides and advisors and all of that weren't able to get him information, I just find it a little bit hard. Now, I do agree that the strategy and planning does change once one administration takes over for another. There are things that happen, and depending on your process and lineage of doing things, yeah, timelines can adjust. So for that regard, I will give Biden a little bit of a pass based off of his administration's strategy for drawdown compared to former President Donald Trump. So let's just keep that in mind for a second here. Now, if you're interested, the link was on your screen. It's also in the Google Drive link at the bottom in the description. I encourage you guys to go check it out. Again, factcheck.org, they are a nonpartisan organization. That's what they claim. There are people who will deny that. There are people who will stand by it 100%, especially in debate time. Moving on. So the next thing I wanted to kind of bring up were remarks made by President Biden on the drawdown, of U.S. forces in Afghanistan. This was the press conference that he had back on July 8th, again from the White House. I'm going to quote a brief summary here, and I will briefly bring up that article on the screen. So you can see here. And so this obviously is coming. Oops, I just realized I didn't switch over. My bad. So you can see here that this is from the White House themselves back on July. And I'm not going to read this whole article. Again, this is basically a transcript. You guys are welcome to go through this as you will. But for now, I'm only going to read a small portion of this that I feel is more relevant to what we're talking about today. Because I only have 13 minutes left. We've already gone through half our time. So what I want you guys to understand is kind of this idea of what he was basically getting at here. And then basically who was responsible for this and how this started to unfold. Okay, so going back here. When I announced our drawdown on April 1st, I said we would be out by September, and we're on track to meet that target. Our military mission in Afghanistan will conclude on August 31st. The drawdown is proceeding in a secure and orderly way, prioritizing the safety of our troops as they depart. Okay. The next one I want to read was just this last week in August. The threat from terrorism has metastasized. There is a greater danger from ISIS and the Al-Qaeda and all these affiliates in other countries by far than there is from Afghanistan. And we're going to retain our over-the-horizon capability that if they were to come back, to be able to take them out, surgically move. Again, he's talking. I don't talk like Joe Biden. But here's my problem with that. Because earlier, he was pretty confident in the Afghan forces to be able to defend themselves during our drawdown process. But it was pretty clear that this happened quickly, and there was definitely a lot of factors that he should have looked at. And in preparation, I do agree with the calls that perhaps we should have in advance gotten non-essential diplomats out there in case this, because now he said in a recent interview, and this was a television interview, so I don't have the transcript exactly, but I will pretty much quote what he said. He said that there wasn't a situation, there wasn't a circumstance where he didn't feel like this was, going to be in chaos. The situation was going to end without being in chaos. And he said it didn't matter if we did it a year ago or today. We would still have chaos. Is basically what he was saying. And to that, it's where this hypocrisy kind of hits in. And it's why it makes it hard to trust government officials, because it's like they're going to say whatever makes them look good on a particular day, right? What's the flavor of the week? What's going to make them look the best, even if they're telling an outright bold-faced lie? And that's basically what's happening here. And I'm taking direct quotes here. When I'm saying this, I'm giving you guys the actual text that he said on different dates. And they backpedal, they backtrack, they say, no, that's not what I meant. And I'm not saying that I'm a fan of Trump, because Trump did that religiously. He was famous for doing that. Backpedaling a comment or trying to rework it to make himself not look so idiotic at times, frankly. All right. So that's been the timeline. And now we just done this whole, comparatively speaking, to Saigon. And I can't disagree with it. I was talking with a good friend of mine last night, and I asked him, I said, why are people comparing this to Saigon so much? And I guess my history, last night and in general isn't as well versed as it probably should be regarding the war in Vietnam. But I guess from textbook speaking, I don't really kind of understand the comparison here. And so he kind of explained it. It's basically, we just gave up and we left. And, he was telling me that it was definitely more of a appease the people kind of thing, that no one in America wanted to be there. We just kind of gave up and left, basically overnight, which is where this comparison to what's happening today comes from. So there was one more article here from AP News. So I'm going to quote this here real quick here. So more than 60 nations released a joint statement Sunday night citing what they call, quote, the deteriorating security situation in Afghanistan. The statement says that those in power and authority across the country bear responsibility and accountability for protection of human life and property, and for the immediate restoration of security and civil order. Goes on to say, the nation's statement also says that roads, airports, and border crossings must remain open, and calm must be maintained. The statement concludes, the Afghan people, and I quote again, The Afghan people deserve to live in safety, security, and dignity. We in the international community stand ready to assist them." End quote. The statement was sent out by the U.S. Department of U.S. State Department, excuse me. And that again was released from the AP News. So this is just a joint statement to the Afghan that this is what we expect of you. This is how we can't stop you now from basically assuming your own government of this country. Yeah, we concede you're in control. As sad as that is to say. And there was definitely a bunch of other things here. And you guys, please go read my notes. I realize I'm running out of time now to get to everything that I wanted to today. But I will read a couple quotes here from the Al Jazeera article. And I'm going to take it off here because I want to make sure I get the full name of the leader for Al-Qaeda who was speaking. But at the same time, I don't want to show the full article on the screen here. Abdul Kahar Baki speaks. And I did want to mention his title. I'm going to sneak away from here. Oh, yeah, here we go. From the Taliban's Cultural Commission. Okay. So they have a cultural commission as part of the Taliban. That was the thing that kind of made me smile just a little bit. Apparently, and I'm just going to refer to him from here when I'm referring to this as Balki. And if I'm mispronouncing that, I'm sure someone can let me know in the comments. Again, Middle Eastern names, not a strong suit. But anyway, I will read this quote over here. So these were kind of a Q&A sort of thing. Is it unfortunate for the Taliban leader was speaking out for the group's future on Al Jazeera on the lack of trust between people in Kabul and the Taliban. And Balki said, quote, "It is very unfortunate for people to be rushing to the airport the way that they are at the moment, because we have announced a general amnesty for everyone in the security forces from the senior to the junior level. This fear, this hysteria that has taken place is unfounded. The governments and women's rights, this is where they were very vague." He said, Balki, "The point of the intra-Afghan talks was precisely that we come to an agreement about what those rights actually will entail." That's basically, but they were not very specific in what they were saying. So, on the report targeting killings and harassment of government civil socially figures, Balki said, "Our terrorist priority is to discipline in our own ranks and not enforcing laws on others, but enforcing it on ourselves first and then giving it an example for the rest of society to follow suit. So we're the first ones, and our members, if they are involved in such things, they will be first to be prosecuted." End quote. Okay. So to me, this reads, you have the entire rest of the world saying that this is a terrorist organization running a country, and then you have them putting on a diplomatic face. And really what this amounts to, and this is the only comparison I can think of, and this show is going to run long. I know it's going to run long now. I'm trying to do this, but if I didn't get through most of this, what I'm going to say at the end won't make a lot of sense. So bear with me here. I just had a lot to unpack today, and so bear with me here. Thank you for sticking around, by the way. So what this really amounts to, and the only comparable thing that I have to compare it to, it's like a murderer who just got out of prison or escaped from prison somehow. And basically you're a sworn enemy of this person, and you have been for 20 years since they got sent away and pushed back, basically. And they come up to you and they back you up into the corner, but then they're like, "Oh, I'm not going to kill you. I'm not going to hurt you." And then they wait for no one to look, and then they kill you, you know? And that's where I think a lot of the fear from the Afghan people comes from. They know this organization is capable and willing to murder, to prevent girls from going to school, to have very archaic means of, authority, if you will. And the sad part is now they even have extra tools and resources, mainly the billions of dollars that the United States left behind, including Black Hawk helicopters, every shape and size of a rifle you could imagine, and they're using it. And the best we were able to do is stop about $10 billion that they had in American banks for the Afghan government to freeze those assets so that they could not get a hold of them. I realize that when we do a drawdown like that, we can't take it all back with us. And the intent was for that military equipment to be used by the Afghan military. But here's the thing. One of the things that I was looking at when I was researching this, I didn't pick it out, but I did read several sources that basically as soon as the Taliban came up to the Afghan, national military at the time, they basically gave up and surrendered their weapons and just joined them anyway. There was no fight in them. And I can't believe that the United States wouldn't have seen that coming. And if they had saw that coming, if there was any inclination, perhaps we could have had a little bit of foresight to restrict access to weapons again and have them prove it. This is disgusting to me, the idea that we have weapons, billions of dollars in weapons in the hands of terrorists that we unbeknownstly gave to them. Isn't that absolutely crazy to you? And it should be disturbing. This whole thing should make you sick to your stomach, because right now I feel sick to my stomach, much like I did after my surgery, because this is disgusting. And all of these people rushing to the airport, and for them to say it's unfounded, it's absolutely founded. I wish that we could get anyone and everyone who wants out of that country out of that country. But unfortunately, we face a situation where the U.S. is not in position to assume control of a sovereign nation. Now, granted, I wouldn't call it sovereign anymore, but by international standards, it's still sovereign. So we can't just do that. And it's the same reason why we just don't go into North Korea and take over everything, because U.S. politics is U.S. politics, and every country has to deal with what they have to deal with. The United States cannot and should not be the world's police. And we have to understand that. At some point, we have to leave Afghanistan. Whether it's now, whether it was last year, whether it's in another year from now, we have to leave. And as sad as it is to see some of the decisions that were made and the mistakes that were made, I'm sure that Joe Biden and Donald Trump, at his heart and at both those men's hearts, wish they could go back and change some decisions. Wish they could go back and do something different. But if they said that, then it makes them look weak in a political circle, and is just fodder for, the rest of their opponents, their political opponents. And that is a sad thing about politics in general, whatever country you live in. So it's not going to go away. It's not going to be something that we can control just because we believe that our way of life in the United States is how everyone in the world should live. It's really sad. I mean, we wish we could save the people from Haiti. We wish we could go into South Africa and rescue everyone who's living in poverty, and we wish we could go and help those people being tormented by the cartels down in Mexico. But it's too much. And in this world, there will be suffering, there will be pain, there will be a lot of hurt, and I believe that it will get worse. For me as a Christian, the Bible tells me it's going to get worse. It's going to get a lot worse. Everything from the global warming, which even me as a more conservative person have to admit, there's definitely some truth to global warming. I don't know to the extent, but it's hard to deny time-lapse video of the polar caps melting. It's pretty undeniable there. and watching statistics of sea levels rising, and knowing that our sun is getting older, and as our sun gets older, slowly over millions of years, it will get bigger and closer to us because a bubble gets bigger, and it will cause the oceans to evaporate all the water that's here. It's how this works. Now, for me, I know what's going to happen. I don't have to worry about that. But for a lot of people, it's a big worry. And I would love to tell you that my truth should be your truth, but I can't. I wish I could. But I'm happy to talk to anybody about it. If it even interests you a little bit about what I'm talking about when I talk about my faith, please let me know. Because I'm happy to continue on. It's just that's not really how I intended this show to be. Um, I'm not a preacher, but I do believe in the faith. So for me, in this situation, it's the one thing that brings me comfort. Now, for those of you not, and those of you who wish that you still had some control, here's something that I will give you. Understand that you are your own person. You control you, your families, and all of that. You have some choices that you make day to day. You may not be able to influence or change what's happening in Afghanistan, but focus on your family. Focus on maybe taking a break from the TV. Heck, if my show brings anxiety to you, I wouldn't be offended if you took a break for a week. Hopefully it brings you calm and does the opposite. But sometimes, that's why people go on week-long camping trips. They just got to disconnect. And I would be a proponent for that. I would encourage that. Um so and here's how you and the last thing I wanted to touch on is how you can help the people in Afghanistan. If you're a Christian like me, pray. Pray for them. Even though you know that they may not be of like faith, of like experience, pray. If not, here's the challenge with wanting to send aid and help them in difficult circumstances. I know some people think about sponsorships, trying to help those people get visas and then be a stateside sponsor for a refugee. Those are possibilities, but the idea that the Taliban are just going to let their citizens have visas willingly, um, and be able to leave that country willingly is probably going to be about as effective as what happens in North Korea. They're going to want that control. I don't believe that a group like the Taliban can change. It's already been stated in that factcheck.org. They already have ISIS and Al Qaeda leaders amongst their ranks. They're already there. So this idea that they're fringe, they're not really present anymore, is not going to be true. That country will most likely be a safe haven for terrorists, which means we basically need to get every innocent person out, that isn't affiliated with any of them, and then let them fight it out amongst themselves, basically. I mean, that's just the honest, brutal truth. Uh, and because, frankly, that unrest has been going on since the biblical times. It's not anything new. It's just a new form. It's just a new wave of civil war in that region is really what happens. So I'm not sure that we can just send aid or expect that we can sponsor someone to come over here. Hopefully, we can persuade through some diplomatic channels at first. And I guess do what we do with Russia sometimes and, twist their arm to make them comply so that they're at least following some international norms and standards when it comes to human rights. But we will have to see. Right now, it doesn't do you any good to worry because none of us can change what's happening over there. Even if we had billions of dollars to go over there and do something, we can't. At this point, what's happening over there is happening, and we just have to try to work through it. For me, pray for those people. We need to get our U.S. citizens out, even if that means sending our forces, in my opinion, out of the airport barrier and into Kabul, into, wherever that we have to go. But we need to get our U.S. allies. We need to get our translators that were over there serving with us. We need to get them visas. We need to get them over to safety and out of that country. For everyone else who's left behind, again, who doesn't have a visa, did not participate in helping the U.S. in our war on terror over there while we're there, we can pray. It's an unfortunate situation. Be thankful that we do live where we live, that guys like me can get behind a microphone like I am right now. If I were over there right now saying the things that I'm saying right now, my head would be cut off so fast, I wouldn't even know what happened before it hit the ground. So just understand that, we get the freedom to express ourselves in a very, I would call it liberating way. So I hope that brings you some comfort, some understanding at least. We don't like it. You're probably still left with a little pit in your stomach right now. And I am too. It's not like some of my episodes where I can put a bow on it, because I can't. I can't put a bow on what's happening over there. It's sad and it's horrible. I pray that you guys are faithful, that you're at least somewhat like-minded like me, and pray for those folks. Anyway, all right. Well, we're going to take off today. I want to thank you so much for spending the extra 8 minutes or so with me today. Tune in next week, same time, same place for Between the Lines. Visit us, BTL-LIVE.com. Like and subscribe. Thanks again, guys.